here's Brody Brazil.
Obviously, right now in Chicago, there's been a ton of talk and hype and speculation about a potential new ballpark for the White Sox. It's only 3 miles north of where they currently play, but it seems like a total world of difference in terms of location and right on the riverfront and just south of downtown and west of Lake Michigan. Like, it seems like a prime opportunity, but it's very much at the initial stages and phases of discussion. And with that said, let's tune into some of the Chicago media coverage and see what they're saying. Here's Fox 32.
About a possible new stadium in Chicago, and it's not the Bears.
The Chicago Sun-Times reports the White Sox are in, quote, serious talks to build a stadium in the South Loop. Lou Canellis is here in Lou. This could really be a prime location.
Yeah, absolutely. They could beat the Bears to getting a new house.
And by the way, in Chicago, talk of the Bears' new stadium has dominated like sports venue coverage. They've been for weeks and months and years now trying to get out of Soldier Field, potentially move out to the suburbs. That's after maybe doing some analysis that redoing Soldier Field again wasn't exactly in the cards. So that's kind of the backstory here. Everybody's been laser focused on the Bears, Soldier Field, the suburbs. And now the White Sox kind of entering the chat, so to speak.
All right, let's talk about this situation. White Sox would finally be in a bustling area with restaurants, retail, offices, high-rises.
Which is not exactly the lay of the land right around Guaranteed Rate Field as it currently sits, by the way.
Sun-Times says White Sox are looking at the South Loop parcel of land known as the 78. It's a sprawling 60-plus acres at Clark and Roosevelt. Site was considered for the Bally's Casino and a possible Amazon hub.
Interesting.
It's viewed as one of the prime open spaces still left around downtown.
That is an amazing shot and location. And no offense to Amazon, but a hub for them there? What a waste of beautiful opportunity right there. That is an amazing piece of blank canvas.
Great sight lines, easy access. In fact, some of the original development plans called for a red line stop right there.
Wow.
No comment from anyone involved.
Of course not.
Article only quotes sources, but it's a move a lot of White Sox fans would welcome. Sox are locked into their lease at Guaranteed Rate for another 5 years. Now, you may recall years ago when the Sox were first building their new ballpark on 35th Street, there was a strong push to bring the team downtown then. No word if public funding, or is this part of a privately financed deal?
That's going to be really important, by the way, eventually. Trust me on that.
Later on, Bears Stadium talk, too. An East Chicago lawmaker making the push for the Bears to make a move to Northwest Indiana. And wait till you hear what Jalen Johnson has to say about Justin Fields. It comes your way later in sports.
Nice tease. Wait, is that true that the Bears are going to Northwest Indiana, like Gary, Indiana? The state line is not that far away. Trust me, I've done that drive a bunch. But the Chicago Bears in the Hoosier State? Nothing makes sense anymore. Okay, let's switch over to NBC5 and get their coverage of this.
Let's turn right now to the news and an idea that has a lot of people talking in Chicago. The White Sox may be seriously considering a new stadium in the South Loop. It's this land here called the 78.
Great drone shot of it, by the way. Too much snow for my preference, but still beautiful location.
That potential move could have a big impact on the team, as well as 2 Chicago neighborhoods. NBC5's Lexi Suter has more.
For more than 30 years, the Chicago White Sox have called this Southside Stadium home. But now there's talk that could change.
I would be very sad if they decided to leave.
Longtime Sox fan Jenna Duddleston says she'd be sad to see the team move 3 miles north.
Hang on, let's just play this for a second.
Her family has owned Shinnick's Pub since the 30s.
I get it, right? And I get the instant feelings and concerns that she has, and it's the family business, and they're right around the corner from where old Comiskey used to be, and I am not diminishing that at all. But that level of expression right there is something I'm accustomed to in covering the Oakland A's situation, is they're potentially moving out of state hundreds of miles away and evaporating from the local market entirely. So this is a preference of 3 miles north, I remind you. But again, I understand the hyper-localized impact here on a business just like this.
A mainstay for Sox fans and team employees.
I get it.
Just down the street from its current stadium.
I think part of the allure of coming here is we're not Wrigley. And I think the part of that is that it is kind of that like neighborhood, like a true Chicago neighborhood, cozy.
According to a report from the Sun-Times, the team is considering relocating to the South Loop and exploring building on this vacant stretch of downtown known as the 78, named for being Chicago's newest and 78th neighborhood. A spokesperson for the team sent this statement in response to our questions. Mayor Brandon Johnson and White Sox chairman Jerry Reinsdorf met to discuss the historic partnership between the team and Chicago and the team's ideas for remaining competitive in Chicago in perpetuity.
By the way, this is the reason we're talking about any and all of this is because, well, this meeting happened, it took place, and the Chicago Sun-Times broke the story.
The partnership between the city and the team goes back more than a century, and the Johnson administration is committed to continuing this dialogue moving forward.
Obviously, that's what the mayor is going to say. Not take a hike, get lost, pay for it yourself. The initial comment is going to be, of course we're going to make this happen for you. But what comes next?
This is a huge opportunity, not just for the White Sox. It's a huge opportunity for the city.
Chicago-based sports business consultant Mark Gannis remains skeptical of the chatter, but he believes it's a project that could be transformational.
Look at that site right there. There's not enough pictures and video. I've not seen anything that makes me dislike it at all. That is just more amazing every new perspective of it I get.
In this site, they have the opportunity to blend the direction of development of the city south of the Loop with residential, retail, entertainment that's coming to that site organically.
The White Sox are currently locked into a lease here at Guaranteed Rate Field.
It looks so cold there.
That's until 2029. So if a move happens, it would still be years away. Reporting outside Guaranteed Rate, Lexi Suter, NBC5 News.
Yeah, but you know what? You have to jump ahead of these things. Trust me on this too. The years, they just flow right by, and unless you start tackling it right now, there's never such a thing as too early for a situation like this. Okay, let's move the coverage on here.
One of the other top stories we've
WGN, classic broadcasting institution of Chicago.
been watching all day. The Chicago White Sox are reportedly in serious discussions about leaving the South Side neighborhood they've called home for more than a century.
Now, this is far from a done deal and comes as the Bears are also eyeing a new stadium.
There's the Bears conversation again. And you know what? Important perspective there to throw that in. Everybody's talking about this. Everybody's excited about this. Like, there's not even official plans or financing or renderings or approvals or agreements. Yeah, anyway, so you get the picture.
WGN's Julian Cruz is in the South Loop now with more. Julian?
Well, Ben and Lourdes, this site behind me here, you may remember 62 acres. It was once proposed as a potential home for a Chicago casino. It could be the site for a new Sox ballpark, although a lot has to happen in order to make that a reality. The Chicago White Sox lease at their existing ballpark, Guaranteed Rate Field,
2029?
expiring in 2029.
I knew it.
Well, nobody's made an ask yet, so having said that,
the governor, by the way, as you can see.
I think you know my views about, privately owned teams and, whether the public should be paying for private facilities that'll be used by private businesses.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, as he's done in the recent past with the Chicago Bears, expressing his reluctance to use public funds.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I know where he's going with that. The answer is no. He doesn't want a part of public funding. Obviously.
In order to construct private sports facilities, but the potential revenues and jobs and other benefits created from a potential Sox park in the South Loop near Clark and Roosevelt, enough to bring Mayor Brandon Johnson and Sox Chairman Jerry Reinsdorf,
the stogie,
together to the bargaining table. In a joint written statement, the parties saying, quote, "We met to discuss the historic partnership between the team in Chicago and the team's ideas for remaining competitive in Chicago in perpetuity."
It could very much fit into a, if you will, Wrigleyville South type of development.
Mark is everywhere, by the way.
Sports marketing expert Mark Gannis has worked on 24 successful sports facility projects through the years, including the new $2.3 billion Yankee Stadium in New York, and he says a new Sox park in the South Loop as the cornerstone to a massive commercial real estate venture, creating a sort of 78th Chicago neighborhood tremendously enticing.
It would be an enormous benefit to the White Sox and, frankly, to Chicago. It would make the White Sox much more relevant. It would bring them closer to
the Cubs. Why don't we just say it? The Cubs,
where business and residential development for the urban core has been taking place. It's been moving south in Chicago.
The 78 parcel, as it's known, owned by developer Related Midwest. We're told that the real estate company will meet tomorrow with 3rd Ward Alderwoman Pat Dahl, who no doubt will have many questions about how this massive project can benefit people in the South Loop. But this possible stadium is still facing tremendous hurdles, especially the developers planning to ask taxpayers to foot the bill for infrastructure improvements at a time when the city is struggling to deal with deficits and migrants and other unexpected financial challenges. In the South Loop, Julian Cruz, WGN News.
Basically one of the big deals in Oakland. On and off-site infrastructure. Now, in the city of Oakland's case, they went out and secured more than $500 million of state and federal grants. That's how they took care of it. Like, that part actually got squared away. The rest of the financing for the project and the development agreement with the A's never happened. But in terms of if it's just infrastructure, I mean, Oakland found a way to do it with the state and governments, the federal and state government's money. Not even Oakland money. Was there any more left on this clip?
One of the other tops.
That was it on that one. Okay, CBS Chicago.
The Bears may not be the only Chicago sports team eyeing a new home.
Gotta preface everything by saying, I know you're fixated on the Bears, but shift your focus over to the White Sox.
The White Sox may also be on the move, but this spot is not too far from its current home. CBS 2's Marissa Perlman is live in the newsroom right now, breaking down what we know about the talks between the team and the city. Good morning, Marissa.
By the way, being in the newsroom, way better than being outside in the frigid Chicago air where you can see your breath.
Good morning to you both. Well, we do know the team's lease at Guaranteed Rate Field
2029
runs out in 2029. Now the team is reportedly in talks to move closer to the downtown core.
3 miles north.
A new report from the Chicago Sun-Times says the White Sox are talking with a developer about the possibility of building a new stadium in the South Loop.
And by the way, none of this is CBS Chicago's fault. I'm just saying by me watching 3 or 4 or 5 news stories here, yeah, you can put together all the most relevant and biggest points.
The site is that large parcel of land called the 78, located near Roosevelt and Clark. The White Sox first confirmed their consideration to move from Guaranteed Rate Field last summer. And while we know they are exploring options for their future home, the team hasn't released any specifics about it. Now, Mayor Johnson and White Sox Chairman Jerry Reinsdorf issued a joint statement to us on the report, saying they both met to discuss the historic partnership between the team in Chicago and the team's ideas for remaining competitive in Chicago in perpetuity. It goes on to say this partnership goes back more than a century. Now, the statement doesn't say anything on the South Loop project or specifics on what was discussed with the mayor. And when it comes to a timeline for a decision, there really isn't one. We know the Sox are locked into their lease until 2029. The team have yet to officially open talks with the state of Illinois about their status at Guaranteed Rate Field. We've also reached out to the developer Related Midwest for comment.
Let me guess. No chance.
We will let you know when we hear back from them.
I think the answer is going to be no chance.
For now, live in the newsroom, Marissa Perlman, CBS 2 News.
Good on them.
Thank you.
Good on them for trying, though, right? You never know what you're going to get back, but in these types of negotiations and back and forth, it's like nobody ever really talks about it. Did I see this one yet?
This is all an effort by the city.
Not yet. Okay, this is the ABC 7 in Chicago, ABC affiliate.
Make sure the White Sox stay in Chicago for the long term. Mayor Brandon Johnson and White Sox Chairman Jerry Reinsdorf issuing a joint statement confirming that they did meet to talk about the team's future in the city. That statement came in response to a new report from the Chicago Sun-Times, and late tonight, a source confirmed that Sun-Times report to Eyewitness News. The paper says multiple sources tell them the team is in, quote, serious negotiations to build a new stadium in the South Loop.
Serious negotiations.
They say it will be on a sprawling 60-plus acre site at Clark and Roosevelt, known as the 78. The site is owned by Related Midwest and is considered one of the prime open spaces still left in the downtown area. In a statement to ABC 7, Mayor Johnson and Reinsdorf say they, quote, met to discuss the historic partnership between the team and Chicago and the team's ideas for remaining competitive in Chicago in perpetuity. The partnership between the city and the team goes back more than a century, and the Johnson administration is committed to continuing this dialogue moving forward. Guaranteed Rate Field opened in 1991 after the team considered leaving Chicago for St. Petersburg, Florida in 1988.
When they did not become the Tampa Bay White Sox. It was all lined up, to be honest with you. If they didn't build this stadium, and there was a midnight deadline in 1988 that actually passed, but then the city said, fine, we'll build it. Fine, we're going to build it. And then they did in 1991.
But then Governor Jim Thompson put together a plan to build a new state-financed ballpark and work to get it passed by state lawmakers. You might remember back in August, there were reports that Jerry Reinsdorf was thinking about moving the Sox out
Nashville.
Guaranteed Rate Field when the team's lease is up in 2029. Tonight, the team has not said specifically what the meeting with the mayor entailed, and we did reach out to the developer, Related Midwest, for comment. At Guaranteed Rate Field in Bridgeport, Trey Ward, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Watch breaking news on YouTube.
Interesting, right? How, we saw the Fox coverage already. Interesting how you started off by saying, well, we might relocate. And then all of a sudden, the mayor of Chicago wants to meet with you. And then we're having these advanced discussions. There's kind of a playbook here. If you're taking notice if you're a White Sox person watching this video, do a little research on other big league teams, like specifically the Oakland A's and where they're at in their situation, as opposed to the very initial phases here for the White Sox, and a beautiful location, which, as I've said before, I hope they can land this. And I hope it works for everybody and makes sense for everybody. It's a difficult agreement to come to, but man, it would be totally worth it. You made it here, the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.